If you're starting to get back into exercising and you're in your 50s or your 60s and it's been 10, 20, 30 years or more since you've worked out consistently, you may feel like you just want to go back to the things that you were doing in your late teens, early 20s. But there are some very specific considerations that you need to be taking with your body and your workouts to make sure that they're continuing to build your health, build your strength, even if it's been 20 or 30 years since you've worked out consistently. This is exactly what we're going to be talking about on this week's episode of the Exercise is Health podcast. We're going to cue our introduction, then we're going to dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, exercisers, to the Exercise is Health podcast, brought to you by Exercise for Life Studios, where we believe that your health is your most valuable asset. And the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise is geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
And today we are discussing this idea of where do you start exercising if you are starting in your 50s or 60s. Maybe it's been 10, 20, 30 years or more since you've worked out consistently, or maybe you've never worked out consistently. What consideration do you need to take with your body and health? That's exactly what we want to explore today. But before we do, we have an ask for you. And that ask is if you can please go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review, that would be amazing.
It actually really helps us land more and more great podcast interviews. And it's actually what Apple Podcasts looks at to help us rate so more people can find us and things like that. So if you wouldn't mind, leave us that rating and review, especially if you have been jamming to our content lately.
Okay, so today we are talking about this idea of where to start with your exercise if you're starting in your 50s, in your 60s, and it's been, again, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years or more, or you've never exercised consistently. What considerations do you need to take? Because it's not just as simple as just jumping into the new popular class that happens to be going on at the boutique studio down the street. There are some very specific things that you need to be mindful of to make sure you don't get injured, and that's what we want to discuss with you today.
You know, Charlie, I think that it is finally becoming like mainstream information that you should be weight training. Everyone needs to strengthen their body. And when you do strengthen your body, that is the number one best, most potent way to keep your strength and function as you age. And it's really important when you're in your 50s and 60s because that's when a lot of people start feeling the decline if they haven't started strength training. And so here you are in your 50s or 60s and you're like, okay, what happens if I'm starting my journey now or I'm restarting after a long time? That means that if you were in school, maybe you've been exposed to sports. Trust me, I love to be active, but I do not like sports. It's funny. I always tell my clients, like, the worst class for me was always like PE. I hated PE because it's all about like people throwing balls at me and stuff. I'm like, I can't handle balls. Anyways, so your exposure is probably to sports, or even if you didn't get into sports, maybe like that was your exposure. Or it's just been a really long time since you've visited the gym or, done strength training. And now you're like, okay, do I do that stuff? Like, I'm going back to my football years. Do I do the football training like I did when I'm in my 20s? Or do I do like the boot camp class like I did in my 30s? There are specific guidelines and considerations we want to review with you so that you know that you can customize your exercise because of this new phase of life. And that is you're going from being kind of sedentary, or maybe you're active in your life but you just don't do strength training, to now adding in the strength training, and you are in that phase of life of being in your 50s, 60s, and even in your 70s as well.
And to build on that, Julie, the other thing that goes along with okay, what do I do is also the expectation of like, how should I feel? Because a lot of times we think, okay, well, when I was younger, I would work out and, I would be sore or whatever for, a day, and then I'd bounce back and I'd be able to do it. And the problem is now if you're in your 50s or in your 60s and you are expecting to have that soreness after you work out, it's likely not going to be lasting just for 24 hours. You're not going to be bouncing back the next day like you did in your teens, in your 20s. And so understanding like how to actually challenge your body in a way that is physically demanding, but does not leave you in a place where you're feeling sore, where you're feeling achy, where you're feeling beat up. And so you can recover quickly despite still kind of like pushing yourself at a level where you can get the results that you're wanting. So there is that balance there. And for a lot of people, it's a very newfound balance. And the problem is if you keep approaching your workout workouts with the mindset of, well, I should feel a little bit sore after, or, this is good soreness or stuff like that, you're going to be setting yourself up not only to be inconsistent with your workouts, because you're not going to be able to recover as quickly from your workouts as you once were. You're also going to be setting yourself up for more serious injuries. And that's where we see a lot of people just kind of throw their hands up and be like, well, I guess I just can't work out at all. So we want to save you from all that today. And so that's what we're going to be discussing.
Yeah. I was just talking to one of my clients about this, and I was saying, so like, what do you think when you like go to the big box gym and whatever? And she's like, well, when I look at the trainers, I'm like, why would you ever have someone do that move that literally looks like I'm going to throw out my back? So you might have had experiences like that. Or one time I asked my dad, like, why don't you use a trainer at the gym? And he's like, they literally look like they have no training. Like there is no experience. So we get it. It's like the current gym industry kind of caters to two types of people. Number one, you're already good at exercise, or you can handle a lot of stuff without getting injured. Or if you do get injured, it's like a pretty quick bounce back. Or you're at like this very light, low key, almost rehab style, and you already looking at it, you're like, yeah, well, that's not even going to be enough to create changes. And you're right. Like it's probably not going to be enough to create changes. So where is that happy middle medium that we can find to make sure that it's right for your body? And your body does go through changes as you age. And so these considerations and principles we'll talk about are going to be really, really important. And if you're watching on YouTube or if you're on your podcast, Charlie has a really nice shirt on. And I wanted to bring this up because our daughter picked it out today. But anyways, I was thinking about his shirt because I know
Where's this going?
You're like squirrel brain. Anyways, I was thinking about your shirt, Charlie, because have you guys ever watched that show Queer Eye, where there's one person and they get like a makeover, and there's like 5 guys that have like a specialty, and one guy, Tan, he's so cool, he helps them with outfits, and the amount of times that you see him like revamping someone's wardrobe, they're like, he's having to like throw out clothes from like their 20s or their teens, and the people are like, but I still really like it, and I don't know, and Tan's like, no, it looks trashy, it's not going to represent you the way you want to represent yourself. So a lot of times when we start talking about these principles when it comes to exercise, people are like, well, isn't exercise? And I mean, I got results when I was in my 20s, shouldn't I do that now? Well, yeah, I mean, you can do the workouts that you did when you're 20s. Just like you can wear the outfits that you wore in your 20s. You can show off your belly. You can wear the booty shorts. You can do all that. But if you really want the best results or the best look, we were talking about the outfit, we have to take in new considerations, have new fits, have new mindset, because it's not about the annihilation of your body anymore. And it's not about just doing rehab exercises to feel good. We actually want your body to get physically better. We want your bones to become more dense. We want your hormones to change because now you're being active like you should be. We want your muscle strength to change. We want your function to change. And function is one of the top ones that changes, because that's the one that goes into being able to pick up your grandkids, being able to travel, lift up your suitcases, being able to swing your golf club, all these things that come from strengthening your body. But we have to make sure it's custom fit for where your body is now, so that you're not wearing the same outfits you did in your 20s, because then it just doesn't usually work out all that great. You're not going to land the job.
I love that, and I appreciate you bringing the analogy full circle. So I'm following you. I'm right there.
Yeah.
with
Well,
you
luckily our 4-year-old Dottie did pick out a decent shirt for you.
She has great taste.
She has great. She actually wanted to match him today, and so we had to settle on just matching color, because they don't. Charlie doesn't have any like mermaid shirts or anything or sunflower
That is
shirts.
true. All right. So where do we start? Well, again, we're talking specifically about doing your strength training, about doing your resistance training. Okay. Yes, we want to make sure that you are like moving consistently throughout your day. That's filling your move bucket. That's what we call your all the time exercise. All that is great. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. But when it comes specifically to doing your strength training, the first thing we want to make sure that you're very mindful of is the range of motion that you are using while you're doing each exercise. One of the things that a lot of people fall into from a oh no, this is starting to get me in trouble perspective, is they try to use too much range of motion while they're doing an exercise. They are trying to match their body to what's considered like the gold standard version of how you do an exercise. So they're trying to squat down so their butt touches their heels. They are trying to do a shoulder press, so they're reaching all the way up overhead, even if 3/4 of the way through the motion, their shoulders telling them to stop. All right. Or the other trap that they fall into is if they are not able to do what they consider the gold standard version. If they're not able to do a shoulder press where they're reaching up all the way up overhead, they say, oh, I'm just going to scrap this all together since I can't do it. Okay, so it's usually kind of like one of two buckets. Either they are doing too much motion, or because they can't do as much motion as they think they should, they just don't do it at all. And both of those are detrimental for their own reasons.
That's right. So we want to think, the things that I do for exercise are the places where I'm going to get stronger, right? But you can't keep getting stronger if you're getting hurt, right? And range of motion is one of those. And actually, what's usually applauded in the fitness industry is like more range of motion, the better. And actually, we want you to be matching your range of motion. So how do you know how much range of motion you should do? Well, a really, really easy way to do this is start with no weight. So if you see someone doing like taking dumbbells and pressing them overhead, and you're going to try that. Well, try that motion with no dumbbells first. Don't put any weight on. Just do the motion with nothing. Or if you're going to do a pull down, or you're going to do a leg press or a squat, do it with zero weight first and just see how far your body can go. And we want to feel nothing when we do it. If you do feel anything, it should be muscle squeezing. So you want to feel no sensations, no stretching, no tightness, no pulling, no zinging. So you're looking for that range of motion. And then on top of that, we also want to see what is symptom-free range of motion. So not how far can I go, but how far can I go that's symptom-free. And then you want to constantly keep an eye on this as you add weight, because sometimes you can do, an overhead press perfectly, whatever you think is full range of motion or what everyone else is doing with no weight, and it's perfect. But then you add weight and then you start getting this weird twinge in your shoulder or something. Well, you got to leave that range out. So we don't want to ever say, oh, there's a twinge in my shoulder, I just shouldn't shoulder press today. You should shoulder press today, but you should make sure you just leave out that small range that's a problem, because most people, they leave out exercises when there's a problem in like 1 inch of the range, or even half the range, or even 3/4 of the range. Still do that 1/4, that 1/2, that every inch except that 1 inch, because your body's going to get stronger even if you have to leave out a little section. And that is actually the best way to regain that section that your body was previously telling you no. So the first principle, you got to be mindful of your range of motion and stay in a symptom-free range of motion, and scratch the whole maximum, fullest, all of the range of motion.
Exactly. Now, what goes hand in hand with this really is the second principle, which is to be mindful of the areas of your body that you're moving and the areas of your body that you are not moving. And why I say this goes hand in hand is because a lot of times, let's take the shoulder press, for example. If somebody feels like they can't reach their arm all the way up overhead when they're standing straight up, they may start changing how their torso is positioned to try to be able to go up all the way overhead. And when you start changing different areas of your body in order to try to accomplish more motion, not only are you going to be affecting the muscles differently, but there's an increased likelihood that you're going to be stressing your joints. You're going to be stressing your ligaments, your tendons, your discs, your fascia, all these soft tissue injuries that so many people end up complaining about. And then on top of that, also an increased likelihood that you feel achy, beat up, sore after you work out. So not only do you want to stay within your symptom-free range of motion, you want to make sure that the areas of your body that you want to move, those are the only areas of your body that are moving during this exercise. Now, a lot of times this is called form, but the problem with form is it kind of implies specific rules, and so we like to call it kind of the moving, non-moving segments.
Right. So if you think about an exercise, let's just take our overhead press, like Charlie was saying. There's parts that move and parts that don't move. So you're going to define, okay, when I press overhead, my arms and my shoulders, they're going to go up and down and up and down. But what's not moving is the rest of your body. So what you'll see a lot of times is people breaking this rule because they think more reps is better, more weight is better, more range is better, all the things that they think is better, which they're all not better. But, you'll start to get tired or whatever, and then you'll start seeing, okay, this shoulder press is now like a full body torso and shoulder press. Okay, now it's like a knee, torso, hip, shoulder press. Okay, now it's like literally having to jump in the air, shoulder press. So anyways, what happens is that you slowly start like leaving the whole point of the exercise. And then it's just, why are you doing it in the first place? It turns into like athletics. And remember, the whole goal of exercise is to improve your health. So make sure you're defining what's moving, you're defining what's not moving, and then you make sure those stay the same the entire time you're doing that exercise.
Yep, absolutely. Now, what's going to really help with that is going right into the third principle, which is being very mindful of your speed and making sure that you are moving slowly. Okay, when you start to move really fast when you're doing an exercise, it's much harder to control what areas of your body are moving and what areas of your body are not moving. Okay, just think about like if you were to try to do like a dance move and you're learning a dance move, right? And you might start by kind of doing it really slowly because that's going to help you get that dance move down. If you try to learn a dance move at the start by trying to move as fast as you can, it's just going to look like you're just kind of gyrating in place. Like you're not going to actually be performing a dance move because you're not able to control the areas of your body that you want to control, not able to keep those areas still and just only move the areas of your body that you are wanting to move. Okay. So when you go and do an exercise, in order to help keep your non-moving parts non-moving and your moving parts being the only areas of your body that you move, making sure that you are moving slowly will really help with that. Not only that, it's going to help you respect your range of motion better. It's going to actually challenge your muscles more. And it's going to lead to less chance of injuring yourself, of feeling lousy after you work out, and ultimately allowing you to get better results from your workout because you'll be able to keep returning to your workout.
Charlie, a few years ago, I used to go to downtown Chicago and take these advanced tap classes. And, in the beginner classes, we all do like the slow stuff and the basic moves and all this stuff, all the things that you need to fine tune if you're going to be a good tapper. But when you get to the advanced class, all the advanced tappers always want to go to the fast moves that you can't break down. And it's like, okay, that was cool. Great. That's clearly advanced that you can do that. But I remember one day the instructor said, okay, we're not allowed to move fast today. And the challenge that all the advanced tappers were presented with to slow down their movements but still be precise with their sounds was incredible. I could not believe it. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so difficult. But it was more precise. It was more thoughtful because at the end of the day, the goal is doing it right and working on, I guess then, was it your tap sounds, your percussion, we call it. And so when it comes to exercise, the goal is not getting the weights up and down. The goal is not to max out the rack or whatever. The goal is to challenge your muscles. And the way that we do that the best is to slow down, even if that means your weight goes down. But what happens is that you're actually challenging the muscle more. Mm-hmm. So I know you had to go from 10 pounds of dumbbells to 8 pounds, but now your muscle's actually working harder because you're not launching and you're not being mindless. You're being mindful and you're moving nice and slow, which takes us to our next point of being mindful.
Yes, exactly. And that is to focus on squeezing your muscles while you are doing the exercise. Okay. The beautiful thing about this principle is not only will it force you to move more slowly, because if you are truly focused on squeezing your muscles, it's going to be really difficult to move quickly and maintain your focus on squeezing your muscles. But it will also make you more precise with what areas of your body you're moving, what areas of your body you're not moving, and it's going to make you more respectful of your symptom-free range of motion. So by doing this one of focusing on squeezing your muscles, it makes the other three so much easier to abide by as well.
You know what's so interesting is that besides from the little slogan that's like, just do it, I can do exercise, just do something. A lot of people will also say at least I got out and moved my body. And with sayings like that, it almost takes the attention of exercise from what it really is, which is muscle contraction, to what we see externally, which is movement. So when you're exercising, you can move or you cannot move. But either way, you need to focus on the muscle squeeze, which is the main point of exercising, squeezing muscles, contracting muscles. When you contract muscles, that is what creates physical and hormonal changes in your body that create the health changes we're looking for, like changes in the strength, changes in your bone, changes in how your system is operating. So make sure that the focus goes from counting the reps or watching the news, whatever is there to distract you, that you're really thinking about the squeezing of the muscles, and even the motion is secondary to the squeeze, the focus on the squeeze.
Absolutely. And so just to recap, again, these 4 principles that we want you to keep in mind every single time you work out. If you're just starting up again, you're in your 50s or 60s, and it's been 10, 20, 30 years or more since you've worked out consistently. Number 1, be respectful of your range of motion and exercise within your symptom-free range of motion. Number 2, be very mindful of what we're calling your moving and non-moving segments. When you do an exercise, what areas of your body do you want moving? What areas of your body do you want to hold still, and abide by that strictly? Number 3 is move slowly while you're doing each exercise. It's going to make you more precise with your movements. It's going to help you stay within your symptom-free range of motion, and it's going to ultimately be more challenging for your muscles, allowing you to get better results. And number 4, focus on squeezing your muscles. That will force you to move more slowly. That will keep you within your symptom-free range of motion, and that will help you to keep your non-moving segments not moving and just move the areas of your body that you're wanting. And not only that, it's actually going to get more signal sent to your muscle fibers, which ultimately will get you better results from doing the exact same workout that you're already doing, just switching where your focus is. So these keys, these 4 principles really are the keys that you need to implement with every single exercise. But okay, where do you go from there, right? Like we want you to be, resistance training, implement these 4 keys, but where do you go from there? And that's really where this next step comes in, of making sure that you're doing your strength training a minimum of 3 times a week. Okay. A lot of times when it comes to doing strength training, we think, like I got to it once a week, or I got to it twice, or, it's something that I sprinkle in between, my cardio that I do a few times a week. But really the emphasis needs to be on doing your strength training, on doing your resistance training.
Charlie, just maybe, 3 weeks ago, I was like, Charlie, there's like a studio gym down the street. They're actually like a franchise, and they tell everyone you can work out twice a week for 20 minutes, and that's all you need. And I was like, why can't we say that? And Charlie was like, well, should we lie to people, like against what research says, or should we just keep doing exactly what we know you have to do versus what people want? So anyways, you do need to strength train a minimum 3 days a week. We actually try to we have an online membership called the Exercise for Life membership, where we teach you how to do it 4 days a week without being sore and achy. Like there's no reason that you can't do it 4 days a week. Actually, during the COVID pandemic, we did it every single day.
75 days in a row.
Yeah, because when you follow these principles, you're getting all the positive stuff and leaving out all the negative stuff. So you can just keep doing it. And you might think, well, why would I want to do it 4 days a week? Well, here's the thing. You only get benefits when you do it, right? It's like saying, like, I think I'll eat like 1 strawberry a week and think that that's going to be all my nutrition that I need, or 1 salad a week. At least I had 1. No, we would never think that. You need to have more stimulation than the once a week or twice a week. So thinking 3 or more times a week is ideal. And really, if you were in your 50s and 60s, it's really an amazing time to start exercising. I was actually on a podcast a few weeks ago, and this woman, she was in her 50s, and she was saying, I actually talked to a lot of my friends, and they feel like they've just gone too long without exercising. And we talked about how the greatest thing about exercise is that it never reprimands you. You just start getting the benefits right away. There's actually, especially if you follow these principles of moving slowly, focus on your muscles, the squeeze, noting the moving and non-moving parts, and respecting your range of motion, you're going to start getting those positive changes, those positive mood boosts, those changes in your muscle tissue, your bone density, your hormone levels. You get it right away. Like you get to start receiving those as soon as you start. So you don't have to be like, oh darn, I missed out on the last 30, 40 years. I should have been doing it. Yeah. Well, maybe you should have been doing it. But if you're here now listening to this, good news, all the benefits are just waiting for you to start.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the Exercise for Life membership, because in there we have one program called Resistance Training Building Blocks. And that really focuses in on these 4 key principles and teaching you how to implement each one of those principles throughout every single workout that you do. So if you would like guidance on being able to implement the principles that we talked about today, be able to work out right from your home in under 25 minutes, and you're worried about having some kind of muscle issue going on, some kind of, joint achiness, and you're feeling like, I can't go to the gym and work out by myself, or I can't jump in on those classes, are going to be too intense, these programs will be a perfect fit for you. Like I said, you can do them right from home on your own time. They're on demand. So whenever it works for you, it works for us, you can get them done then. So all you have to do to be able to get access to that Resistance Training Building Blocks program is go to www.exerciseforlifestudios.com/membership. Not only will you get access to the Resistance Training Building Blocks program, you will also get access to hundreds of other workouts that we've put together in over 20 on-demand video guided programs that, again, you can do from your mobile device, from your TV, from your laptop, however you're able to access the internet, you can access these. So it's www.exerciseforlifestudios.com/membership. So who do you know that needs to hear this episode? Who do you know that is starting to exercise again, but doesn't really know where they should be starting? They've taken 10, 20, 30 years or more off, and they're really concerned about, hey, if I start too much too soon, I'm going to end up injured. I don't want to do that. Share this episode with them so they can understand the 4 principles that they need to have in place to make sure that the workout that they do today does not leave them achy, does not leave them feeling beat up, does not leave them feeling sore, and instead leaves them feeling healthier, leaves them feeling stronger, leaves them feel like they're functioning better. And while you're online, head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find our podcast when they're looking for information on exercise and they're looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us a 5-star rating and review. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week. This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.